Welcome to the Amplified CEO with VC and serial entrepreneur Richard Stroupe. Today's guest is Danielle Mahon, founder and CEO of Topsail Steamer, specializing in providing take-home seafood steam pots. In this episode, we discuss Danielle's detailed vision and operational experience with Topsail Steamer, her entrepreneurial roots, and her recent experience with the widely popular Shark Tank.
Danielle Mahon.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So you just completed your meeting with Shark Tank. How was that?
It was an unbelievable experience. That's a question that I've gotten a lot recently. How was it? And I would say there's a ton of different emotions attached to how it was. It was nerve-wracking. It was exciting. It was once in a lifetime. And then you go over it all again with the airing, when, for so many months, you keep it to yourself and only you and your small team know it happened. And so when the episode airs, it's a whole nother flood of emotion and fun and overwhelm. And so, yeah, it's been quite a ride.
So how many months ago was the actual filming versus when you see it on TV?
I filmed it in mid-June.
Okay.
And it aired October 28th.
Okay. And did you have to apply to go through a process to get accepted?
Yes. I applied online in January.
Okay.
So there's a couple different ways to appear on a Shark Tank episode. They do casting calls. In fact, I just saw that they just opened up their 2025 casting calls.
Okay.
So they generally go to a couple cities to do a casting call. You can apply online. And then they also do some recruiting as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So once you're selected, do you go through like an initial process of like, we need to understand your business model a little better before you come on and kind of pitch us, or?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a long process with lots of steps along the way.
Okay.
So you apply, and then if you get a response from the application, that's exactly it. They just want to look a little further into the business. I'm not allowed to talk about the specifics of it because there is a lot of confidentiality that we have to sign and clauses that we're under. But yes, you apply, and then there's more. You have to submit a video and then more information about your business. And so it goes on for several months. And I was just fortunate to be able to keep making it to that next step.
Right.
And then they really don't tell you if you'll have an opportunity to actually film until just a couple weeks before.
Oh, wow.
You go through all of that for many months.
Okay.
And then, for us, we got the call, or we were notified, okay, you're going to come out and film. And even then, they just only let you know a couple weeks before.
Mm-hmm. So once you had the call,
Yep.
Imagine you and your family were like super excited. We're going.
Yep. Yes.
But you can't tell anybody.
Nope.
Yeah.
Can't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Can't tell anybody. It was just my husband and I that went.
Okay. And was it in New York?
It was in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's where their studio is.
Yep.
Okay.
Sony. They shoot on the Sony lot.
All right. So when you got there, did you meet Mark Cuban and all the different cast, or?
No. The way it works is there is no interaction with the sharks at all before you walk out on that stage.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So the first time you actually have seen these people having conversations is right there on the spot.
Right there.
Okay.
And they do that because it really is true that they know nothing about your business before they hear your pitch. So even when you're there, there's separate entrances. They make sure that you never run into them because there's people there with branded shirts and they just want to make sure to keep the integrity of the show, that they have no idea. They're seeing and hearing from you for the first time when you walk through those doors.
So on a typical taping day that you were there, how many other businesses would you say they would probably go through in one day?
Well, they do it in, from what I understand, 12-hour days, I believe. So I think they see somewhere between 10 and 12 entrepreneurs each taping day.
Okay. So you're taping, even though online or on the show is like 20 minutes or with questions and answers. Was that really like an hour of like taping and they edited out certain things? And
yeah, you're in the tank for much longer than that 10 to 12 minutes.
Was that stressful?
No, it actually wasn't. For me, the most stressful part was the before I got out there, because the only scripted part of the show is your 90-second pitch. So, and you only get one chance to do that.
Mhm.
There's no do-overs. There's no film it again. Can I try that again? So that, I think for me, that was the most stressful part because you have this opportunity and you want to make sure you get it right. So,
Right.
so once I got through my pitch, then it really just becomes conversational. Lots
Mhm.
of questions from everyone. They want to get there because it is their first time seeing the concept.
Mm.
They want to talk. There's a lot of, everybody
Yeah.
wants to ask a question and give their opinion. And so it goes fast. And I think I was probably in the tank 45 minutes.
A total? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really was just conversation. At that point, it was talking about my business
Right.
and answering questions about my business.
And you've had a lot of experience doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
you better believe I was prepared to, I've watched the show. I anticipated what would be
Yeah.
asked. I made sure I knew my numbers. I made sure that I would have answers to the questions. So, yeah. So at that point, it was just, it really just became
Yeah.
conversational.
It's very uncomfortable because when you watch the Shark Tank, which I've seen many episodes, and founders will go out there and do their pitch. And then some of the questions are basic softball questions like, what are your sales? What are your margins? What's your cost of goods sold? And they're like, and you kind of feel like, oh my God, they have to feel like so paralyzed at that
Well,
moment.
I think I've probably seen those episodes, and I was
Yeah.
going to be sure that didn't happen to me,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And I would say I probably even went the other way with all of the things I was prepared for.
So when they called you 2 weeks before the airing
Mhm.
or the taping, I'm sure you and your husband were like practicing your 90-second pitch, and you probably were going through all the different questions and anything they possibly could ask. I mean, Mr. Wonderful's pretty sharp on his financials. He's going to ask me questions all about my margins and
My
my costs and
customer acquisition and
Yeah.
all of that.
what's my
Yes.
TAM. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah. I think my husband probably heard my pitch 1,000 times.
Yeah.
In the
Right.
morning when I was blow drying my hair, making dinner, I'd just walk around the corner and start the pitch. And I did that a ton.
Right.
So, and I would say when I look at it on, now, once you film, you never get to see anything, right? So the first time I was seeing it was the first time everyone else was
Okay.
seeing it.
Okay. So they didn't give you a preview.
Oh, no.
Okay.
You don't even get a picture of yourself in the tank. You don't get anything.
Wow.
Yeah, they hold everything. So
Okay.
I was seeing it with everybody else for the first time.
Right.
And I remember when I was doing the pitch, I was like, oh, there were a couple words that, because you have it down, like
Yeah.
it's down.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking there were a couple times when I almost, because you have to make sure they're all in front of you and you're on the stage. And I remember thinking, okay, I hope I can get, like, I missed that word. I hope I can keep going.
Right.
Also, I had bronchitis. And I was really sick the 2 weeks before, and going into that day, I had a bronchitis where when you talk, you cough.
Mhm.
So the whole time before, I think I might have drank 10 cups of throat coat tea. I asked if I could have a water hidden. I probably ate 20 Halls that day because I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to get through it without coughing.
Right.
I think the adrenaline just kicked in, and
Oh yeah.
I don't think I coughed once.
So you don't need to take a break or anything. Like they're just filmed for 45 minutes. And
Yeah, there's just
conversation.
you're in there. Yep,
Okay.
everything's yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So you're in there and you have the questions. Obviously, congratulations on your deal,
Thank you.
and we'll get into that momentarily. But
Okay.
how did you feel with the? I mean, obviously, going in the Shark Tank, they're gonna cut you down. I think your first offer was $350 for 8%, which is roughly 4.23 valuation.
Mhm.
And different valuation topics, especially for the restaurant business. Is it a multiple EBITDA? Is it a multiple sales? And of course, they're celebrities and they can bring their brand and their impact and use that as leverage to cut your offer down. But when that first offer came back at $350 for 20%, like what was that initial gut reaction? Like, oh my God.
The initial reaction for me was really positive, right? Because going in, I had already done my research on what the likely offer would be based on, I mean, you can look at 16 seasons worth of what the entrepreneur came in with, what their ask was, what the offer was, how that's been trending over the past, how it's different from season 1 to season 15, 16. And
Right.
so I did a lot of that work, and I already went in there with a range, and I knew what range would make sense based on the partners or 1 or 2 partners.
Mm.
So I knew that first offer, especially like I only learned the day before who the guest shark was.
Okay.
Maybe the
So you
day
had
before.
no idea
I
Raising
had
Cane's was
I had
going to
no
be
idea.
there.
No,
Okay.
they don't let you know who the guest
Wow.
shark is.
Okay.
So when I learned who the guest shark was,
That
I
was pretty
thought
positive.
that feels like
Right.
somebody who's in the food industry,
Yeah.
somebody who understands. So when I found that out, I knew where my range was, and that initial offer, was within the range,
Got it.
right? So
Okay. Yeah, I think they call that the ZOPA, Zone of Potential Agreement,
that's exactly
where
right.
you've got your high and low reservation value. Like this is my floor. I can't go any further than that. Anything else on the upside would be great, but
That's exactly it. So it was
okay.
within, I haven't heard that term before, but that's where it was. It was within my zone of, I had a no go,
Right.
and that was within the,
So
could
that's
potentially
probably a good
go.
lesson learned from anybody listening to this that wants to go onto Shark Tank is to do your research, right?
Yes.
Go through, like if you're in the restaurant business, go through all the different restaurant deals that I've gone through and start making notes, like what was the initial offer, what was the accepted offer, and what was the counter, and then go back and see what was the outcome, like how have the sales been since that deal has been done.
It is. And so there for me, because I didn't want to get to a place where I was under the lights and excited and in the moment, and
Right.
I agreed to something that didn't make sense for me or for the company. I wanted to make sure that I was really clear on the numbers, so I didn't, because I didn't know how I was going to react in there under the lights with all of that going on.
Right.
So
I'm sure it's nerve-wracking.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have especially too, you don't have a calculator in front of you. You don't have
Correct.
anything. You have to do it all in your head, and you have
Right.
to do it while you're on national television and in front of the sharks. So
Right.
for me, the way that I think I knew I had to prepare and have a, a
Yeah.
good,
Well,
a good
especially
gauge.
if you give them the wrong answer, they're going to get yelled at. Like,
Right.
what do you mean you don't know your numbers? You
Right.
don't know your sales?
Oh
You know-
my gosh. I think the entire flight out there, I was definitely heightened for,
Right.
for a while.
Yeah.
Because I kept thinking, well, what if I get asked this, and what if I get asked this, and let me look at that. And you're right, there's so many different ways to get to evaluation,
Mhm.
and you don't know what they're thinking and what you're thinking, and how much time you're going to get to explain how you got to where your valuation is.
Right. All right. So you accepted 350 for 18%, split between Lori and Raising Cane's CEO. So they're going to take, basically 8% each for 350, which is roughly 1.8 million Val, off the top of my head. So it's almost half, so it was in your zone. So you figured, all right, they're going to cut me down a little bit. So, all right, so that's June. We're sitting here in November. And again, just cut me out if this is getting into NDA territory. So it's a handshake deal, like you agree in good faith on national TV.
Mhm.
Then I assume lawyers get involved, and now you have term sheets, and then you have certs and reps and other types of legal obligations that you have to really sign up for. Did you enter a deal? Are you still in due diligence? Where is that at?
We are still in due diligence and negotiations at this point.
Okay.
But that's
wow.
exactly what happens.
Okay. So you've been sitting with lawyers for 4 months trying to hammer out a deal.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And it takes a little while. And
Right.
if you think they're doing several deals, lots of deals. So
Right.
there's some time involved in that when it actually, until it really gets started. But yes, we are in the due diligence, and it's a handshake deal. It's TV. And then when you're off TV, then it's an investment deal. It's a financial
Correct. Like a normal
deal,
venture
like
capital.
a normal
type
venture.
thing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting because I think a lot of people that aren't familiar with the VC model or understand investment, especially from a private, point of view, they feel like, wow, they did a deal on TV. Congratulations.
Yay
It's
for
off and
them.
running,
Yes.
but really behind the scenes, there's a lot more work to be done.
That's right.
Okay. So do you feel confident you'll get a deal like similar to what they asked for? I mean, I know you probably can't talk too much about it, but have they asked for more concessions or more things than they did on TV?
Yeah, that part I can't go into.
Fair enough. I get that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. But there's been some positive sides, right? Your sales have increased since you had some exposure. Do they take any credit for that? Because you're making the investment, you're going on live TV. People now coast to coast see your business model. They go to your website, they see where your locations are, or they can order gift cards online or whatever. I know you do some shipping. Do they take credit for that? Like, hey, you know what? Your sales are up 800%. So we're going to take a cut of that. No, that's all you.
Okay. If there's no deal in place right now, I'm 100% owner of Topsail Steamer.
Good.
So anything that's happening right now is
good for you.
Yeah. Yep.
And do you have someone other than your legal team, someone kind of like looking over these terms and conditions and saying, you know what, that's not fair, ask for this, or, based on what we feel is more accurate and fair for the restaurant industry?
Yeah, I do have some advisors that are working with me on that.
Good. So other than doing your due diligence and practice and research, any other lessons learned for any entrepreneurs who may consider going on the Shark Tank?
I would say absolutely. If you're thinking about it, try it, right? It feels like such a big, such a big thing. And it is, it's a huge accomplishment. I think the numbers are 0.4% actually get on the show. And then I think it's like 0.2% do the deal, right? So, but I would say I had this time last year, if you would have asked me if I would have been on Shark Tank, I would have been like, you're crazy. Right. But I just decided one day, because I'd had customers say since the very beginning, since we started, you should be on Shark Tank. This is a great idea. You should be on Shark Tank. You should do it. And in the beginning, I thought, no, it's not something that I want to do right now because I am a unique concept. Mr. Wonderful would always say there's a very low barrier to entry. Right now, I'm not ready to take this out nationally because there's not too much that would stop people from copying it or doing the same. And so I had that fear in the beginning. But then it's 7 years in and feeling like, we're really well branded, we're expanding, we're franchising, we ship nationally. I felt like at this point it would help possibly give us, that exposure that we wanted because we were ready for it and we've branded. So I would say to any entrepreneur, if you think that this is too big of a mountain to climb, you should just try it. Right. And for me, it really just was, we applied. We were honest. We kept, giving. We kept giving all the information we had. We told our story. We were genuine, and it was a lot of work. But in the end, whatever the result is, I mean, we had a big win.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right? We had a big win for our sales. My franchisees who have locations where now this will help drive more people in their doors. We've got national exposure on the gifting side and the ship to home. We do that right now. Shipping is that's where we're seeing, because a lot of our stores are closed because it's off season. That's where we're seeing a lot of the impact today. Right. Because people love to, whether you've been to a Topsail steamer and you want to ship it to where you are at home, or you're looking for a gift or just to share that type of experience with someone and have it shipped to your house. So that's where we're seeing really the biggest impact. And no one else is doing it. We're unique in that fashion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your background. You're from New Jersey.
Yes.
Where specifically in New Jersey?
I was originally from Burlington County, Marlton, Tabernacle area in New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you spent a lot of time at the beaches in New Jersey.
At the shore, down the shore.
Okay, the shore.
Down the shore, yes.
Jersey Shore.
Going down the shore. Yep, it's the Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore. Is it similar to what we saw on TV?
No, it's nothing like it.
Right.
That Jersey Shore is north. I'm from the southern Jersey Shore. Cape May, Ocean City.
Oh, Cape May.
That area. The one you saw on the show was north.
Yeah, Cape May.
Very different.
Cape May is beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Somebody brought me back one of the peace pies.
Oh, yeah.
Familiar with peace pies?
Yeah, they were on, I believe they were Shark Tank brand too.
They were,
yes.
Yeah, and they were delicious, so I ordered some. and I'm a fan. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, look, the peace pies.
Yeah.
It's
I just
like-
saw the Peace Pie shop that we went down to Cape May
Really?
for Christmas last year.
Yeah.
They have a really nice Christmas. They do the whole town up and festival, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've heard a lot of great things about Cape May.
Yeah.
And of course, Atlantic City's not too far away.
Yep. So, and we have 4 locations along that strip in those shore towns between Atlantic City and Cape May.
You grew up in Jersey
Mm-hmm.
and you went to Rutgers Camden
I did.
and you majored in management,
Yep. Management and
Okay.
minor in marketing.
marketing. Okay. So
Mhm.
you left college and started into sales,
I did. Yes.
pharmaceutical sales.
Well, my
right?
first job out of college was actually payroll, ADP. You know,
Okay.
I went right into that cold calling. I like to call it blue
Right.
suit.
Right.
Sales. So I started in with ADP and payroll. I was actually in a few different industries. I also worked for Procter and Gamble for a bit.
Okay.
And when we moved to North Carolina in 2003
Okay.
because my husband took a position where we had to live in the southeast somewhere.
Okay.
So we picked the northernmost part of the southeast,
Right.
and we went to Raleigh.
Okay.
Yep. So
But before you moved, like your dad, did he start his own business?
he
or
did. That's
Okay.
exactly right. And then I worked for my father. So my father was also an entrepreneur. His industry was electronic components, so semiconductors.
Okay.
And he went out on his own. He worked for a major distributor in the 70s and then saw a path to be able to do that on his own as a broker. And he started his own company, which even today at 78, I believe my dad is, he's still brokering parts.
Wow.
Well, a whole lot less in a different
Wow.
capacity, but
Okay.
he still has some customers that he's had for 40 years that he
Right.
still works with. So yeah,
So does he have a team or is he kind of an independent contractor?
he did have a team.
Okay.
Now he's just back to himself. But for a while, yeah, he had a decent sized organization.
So, I mean, at a young age, you were exposed to entrepreneurial background
yes.
and experiences.
And really, I
Yeah.
think yes. But I think what stuck with me the most is that when you see an idea or a different way that something can be done,
Right.
that you can go ahead and do that
And not be afraid to take
and
a
not be
risk.
afraid to take a
Right.
risk.
Exactly.
I always like to say, and the people around me say, there's a couple different ways to look at things, and I don't necessarily see guardrails like others see them.
Right.
And so for me, ideas feel like opportunities, and they always have.
Right.
And I've had a lot of ideas over the years that didn't necessarily pan out to be opportunities, but
Right.
I think that's the way that I've always looked at things. And my guess is that I think because my father did that, I saw that from a young age. I can remember going, and I was younger than 10, I'm sure, like to his office where he now
Right.
had his own office,
Yeah.
right? A place where we would go. And I think that that's definitely what, for me, why I always felt like having my own business was something that not only was achievable if I had the right idea and also if the timing was right,
Right.
but something that I would want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar background. A lot of my family, when I started thinking about it, I was like, my dad was in the truck driving business, and my grandmother opened a florist and then left it to my aunt. And my other aunt opened another florist. And you had small town mentality, but then there's also a strong growth mindset. It's
Yes.
like not afraid to take a risk or
Yeah.
put a model together and see
And
if
see
we
to
can, launch it and get it operational.
Yeah.
So
My mom too, years after that, my mom opened her own home decorating store. So she had a home decorating store for a few
Right.
years, right? So
yeah,
that's exactly, it was just something that you did if you could.
right. No, it's awesome.
Yeah. It's been, I never really, and I'm not sure that I connected those dots until I've got into this place where people are asking me about it, right?
Mhm.
And the why behind it, because there's some people that say, my gosh, that feels so scary. Could just never do that. But I think if it's something that's kind of been a part of your upbringing and you've always seen, it doesn't feel so scary. It just feels
Exactly.
like, I can take this and do that with it.
So you moved to RTP, and you said
Mhm.
in 2003.
2003,
Okay. And by this time, you're still in the sales area.
still in
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah. Leading a team, managing a team.
Not when I got to RTP, no.
Okay.
In fact, it's I was in sales in New Jersey, and I don't think I've told this part of the story, But I always knew that I was very interested in something medical. I just knew that I kind of maybe wanted to go that route, something in
Mhm.
that realm. And so I actually decided that I was going to go back to school for nursing.
Okay.
And I had been accepted into for Drexel has in Philadelphia, they have a second degree program. So I think it was bachelor's to BSN. And so I'd been accepted, I had done the orientation, and I was about to go down that route, and then we moved.
Right.
So I think when I got to RTP and I knew that I wanted to do something in that world. And so
Mhm.
that's when I saw the opportunity it was Thermo Fisher for life science,
Mhm.
I thought, oh, maybe that's it. And that's when I took my first life science position. I was actually selling pipettes. But I loved the life science industry because where I was selling into was mostly both academic and biotech pharma research. So
Okay.
drug discovery, academic research. So every day was you were working with a different team who was researching or
Right.
working on something that was really interesting and felt
Right.
like was impactful. And so I really enjoyed the life science industry.
Oh, that's great. Of
Yeah.
course, RTP is kind of rich in that life sciences.
Very rich in that.
Yeah.
And so and with a really good combination of academic
Mhm.
and industry, right? So
Was
um
there ever a time when you're in the life sciences area that you decide or maybe think about doing what your dad did and become a broker or maybe start out as an independent contractor selling some of these into the same industries?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
I'm always scanning. I'm a scanner,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, the entrepreneurial mind never stops.
right.
Like
Oh,
yeah,
right. Yes.
it's a
So
curse.
it is.
It's a blessing and a
It's a
curse.
blessing and a curse,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It never turns off.
No, it's awful.
It's
Yeah.
all.
You get in the middle of the night, use the bathroom, and you're like, oh my God.
I just
Yeah.
did it last night, right? You're just.
I did too.
I mean, I think it was an hour and a half where
Yeah.
I went through 15 subjects, right?
Right.
So it is. So my guess is I can't think of something that comes to mind where I thought that I could launch something in that industry, but I know I was always scanning,
Right.
right?
Yeah. When I worked at Oracle, they were farming me out at 400 an hour on a government contract. And then project managers come to me and said, "Hey, you want to come work for me?" And I said, "Sure." What was the rate? 95. So it's like, all right, I guess that's your competitive advantage is if you could offer the same service for 1/3 of the cost, but it opens up opportunities. So I'm sure your dad probably deployed the same model, whereas
Yep.
instead of selling it for X, he could sell it for Y and make a little bit extra
And that's
money.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And he decided to, he concentrated on those hard to find items that people didn't have. Everybody in his industry would have a broker in their pocket when there was something that they needed that was what they used to call it on allocation and hard to
Mhm.
find. You had to just dig in and go find where that was. And it was easier
Right.
to have somebody that would do that work for you. And then you'd be willing to pay a premium for it because you needed it. So a
Right.
line didn't go down or
Right.
something. Right. Right. And so
Yeah.
he found that niche in that world. And my guess is I think I was always looking through that lens too. Of
Yeah,
where can
absolutely.
you be a value add and
Yeah.
also, be
Yeah, that's
be
great.
making some more money.
So roughly for 20 years,
Mhm.
plus or minus, you worked in that area.
Mhm.
And then, if I understand the story, you were at a dinner with some friends, and this concept came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Out of nowhere.
How many bottles of wine did you have?
It was lunch even.
Oh,
So there
okay.
wasn't even wine involved. There might have been a beer,
Okay.
but I was on a girls trip.
Oh.
I was with my mom and my sister,
Okay.
and we were in the Outer Banks. And in fact, I just visited that restaurant 2 weekends ago, right
Okay.
after this whole thing. But we were in the Outer Banks. It's a full service restaurant that we had decided to go to lunch. It was the off season too. We were sitting at the bar, and this restaurant made the Low Country boil steam pots in the black and white enamel lobster pots,
Right.
right? And so I
Old
just
school. Yeah.
Yep, I just
Yeah.
noticed people coming in and walking out with a pot, which was very unusual.
Mhm.
And what I discovered was that was just something that they did on a takeout counter. Was they would build the pot, customers would take it home, and then they'd bring the pot back the next day.
Mhm.
And for me, I just was that's when the light bulb went off, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is a really great idea. And I'm sure it comes from the fact that we've always had a home by the coast. We love to do seafood,
Mm.
and that lens that I'm always looking at things through,
Right.
that is a great concept,
Right.
but I think you don't need a full service restaurant.
Right.
And so I remember saying it right there. Oh my gosh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And that one didn't go away. So that one was the one in the middle of the night I just kept thinking about, and
Because it's more than just the food, right? It's the
it's
experience.
the
Because
experience.
usually when you have a low country boil, you're with friends or family, large gatherings, you're having fun, catching up, and then you spread this food out over the table. Maybe you have a mallet. I don't know if you have crab or lobster or whatever that's in the mix, but then you use your hands and you're getting in there and everybody's having fun. It's great food. So it's more than just the food. It's the experience that you have while enjoying the food.
That's exactly right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
for us, that's it, right?
Right.
And so for me, I think I had my experience being from New Jersey. We
Mhm.
would pick blue crab, right? So you're from Northern Virginia, right? So
Mhm.
the blue crab,
Maryland blue crab
Maryland
season?
blue
Oh my
crab,
God.
right?
Yeah.
So
I could eat
and
a whole bushel by myself.
me too. I
Yeah.
love picking blue crab,
Yeah.
but we would spread out that brown paper and we
Yeah.
would just put the crabs out and,
Yeah.
and pick crab. And I can remember doing that from a very young age.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of emotion and there's like, you're emotionally attached to that experience because
Oh yeah.
it was
Yeah.
friends and family, linger a little longer, something that that you don't do regularly.
Mhm.
So, and so for me, I think as that idea grew, I knew that was exactly it. We could provide a really good product.
Mhm.
We could and we could answer that, it's a great quality product, good food. We can take the intimidation out of cooking it, right?
Mhm.
Because we can make it really simple for people because a lot of people love it, but they don't know how to do it and they're
Right.
intimidated by it. They don't know where to buy all the components and all of
Mhm.
those things. So we can make it easy, we can make it convenient, we can make it good, but then we can also provide this experience,
Mhm.
right? So that
Yeah.
so that people are emotionally attached to
Right.
the product itself. And for me, outside of just the business concept, that's been probably one of the most gratifying pieces. Like we have become people's tradition. People come into
Right.
these stores and they are so um, positive and excited about what they're about to do. They'd love to tell you about it. They can't wait to tell you the last time they did it and how they're doing it this time and the next time they're going to order. And in my world in sales, you would after a good sale, you would try to go back and get a customer testimonial, right? Hey,
Right.
can you let people know about our experience? We get testimonials every night on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
Pictorial
Right.
testimonials.
Take
Like
pictures of the
people take
gatherings. Yeah.
pictures and they share it and
Yeah.
and there's just so much joy around the product. I looked at it through the business lens in the beginning and I still do, but
Mm.
that's a piece of it that was unexpected and
Right.
intangible, and
Yeah.
it's been a really fun
Well, it's
piece,
the human element,
the human element.
right?
That's right.
That's really the key because if humans are emotional and when you make a purchase, it's emotional, right?
Yes.
And they want to see other people having fun. And they're like, I want that. Like I want that experience. Like when I come to the beach, I'm going to make sure that we have a low country boil party or get together.
And you wouldn't believe one of the things I knew when I was building the model was like we're going to give away the paper, right?
Mhm.
People love that paper.
The
When
brown paper you
we
put on
give
the
them
table?
we give them
Yeah.
the brown paper a free
Yeah.
roll on the way out, and you
Yeah.
wouldn't believe how happy that makes people walking out the door. Like
Right.
just that little, because that really is part of the experience,
Right.
right? So
Oh yeah.
we're trying to build that entire experience for them.
Yeah.
So it's been that part of it and becoming traditions,
Yeah.
people's tradition, and hearing about it year after year. And
Yeah.
even now, we're seeing so much more. When I first started it, we thought, okay, this is a great thing for people to do while they're on vacation
Mhm.
and when they're in their coastal town. But what customers have really told us is that yes, that's one use case, but we ship every day anywhere from 20 to 200 buckets in a day, sometimes more in the holidays, and for birthdays and anniversaries and graduations and congratulations.
Right.
and here's this for your team. People have a team for in corporate America, and they want
Yeah.
to send their team. So tailgating, and we see people taking it to the mountains on the camp stoves,
Right.
right? Camping.
Yeah.
So all those things that I really never thought about when I opened up the first location have shown themselves as ways that people really
Yeah,
love to
absolutely.
enjoy this
Yeah, they
this
take the
product.
coastal experience and now they transformed it into other avenues.
Other avenues,
Yeah.
yes. The
I'm
tailgate is fun. People
Yeah.
take it to the tailgates. Yeah.
Yeah. So my software companies, we used to go to Ken Island, speaking of blue crabs,
Yeah.
and there's a restaurant around the water, and they do the same thing. They'd bring bushels of crabs and lay out the paper and give you the mallets and the knives and forks, and you sit there and hit them, and 4 or 5 hours later, a couple pitchers of beer. It's like it's the best thing.
And
Yeah.
that's how I remember it. We used to go to
Yeah.
2 Mile Inn, which is there's a restaurant in between Wildwood Crest and Cape May as a
Yeah.
kid. Same thing.
Yeah.
Picnic tables
Yeah.
and brown paper and
Yeah.
crabs and well, I wasn't drinking beer at the time, but
Right.
crabs and root beer.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So you had this novel idea, and you said 2016, 17?
2016 is
16.
when I went on the trip, and we opened the doors of the first location in March of 2017.
Okay. So in that 6-month period, did you do any market research? Find out, is any competitors? What's the
Yep.
what's the TAM? What's the opportunity? What's the cost of goods sold? What went into that research?
I wasn't thinking TAM at the at the time, like and those things that we now think about all the time. It was pretty basic. I had an idea. I had a friend who worked for US Foods, so I could get some pricing from him to understand what that might look like. I had so much to learn. I didn't really know anything about clams and shrimp and how it all works in that pot, and how
Right.
do you defrost shrimp if you have to, and how long do clams live? Like there was a lot of my husband and I would go to Sneed's Ferry for several and go and talk to the locals and to find out, because at first I had to figure out, can I figure this out? Will
Right.
this work?
Yeah.
So I would say that year was doing like on the ground, boots on the ground research to figure out if we can do it. And then just like the product, will that
Mhm.
work? And then I started to look at, okay, well, what would a space look like? What does rent even cost?
Mhm.
I brought the idea to my accountant and I said, okay, what do you think? And he said, okay, well, here's your break even. And if you feel like you can, hit your break even, then I would go.
Okay.
Go ahead. And so I looked at that, and my break even felt really doable when I looked at how many pots per day I had to sell. And so, but then it was, where am I going to get how am I going to get the money? Right.
Right.
Because at that point I was working in RTP, and I had a nice job with a
Right.
nice income. My kids were my daughter was in college. My son was just about to go to college.
Yeah.
So, it, wasn't really the right time to say like, oh, I think I'm going to quit my job and we're going to
Yeah.
invest.
So again, normal person, 2 kids in college or one about to go, and full-time job. You with the entrepreneurial mindset, it said, you know what, we're going to do this.
We're going to do this. Well,
We're
my
gonna
husband
try.
kept trying to ignore me.
Yeah.
Like he was hoping that
Yeah.
that idea was going to just go away.
Right.
And I will tell you, I was on the beach with my aunt and my mom talking again about the idea, because now it's going, and now it's happening, and probably maybe we went on the trip in March, and this is probably June or July when I'm really, my wheels are turning. I remember we got off the beach and she called me and she said, "Listen, I love your idea, and I'd like to give you the money for you to get it started."
Mhm.
So she offered me a $75,000 loan.
Okay.
And so now I had the money to start it, and then I just happened to look at, was there a space available?
Right.
And there was, for a really low rent, and everything just kept falling. And my accountant said, if you can make this work, like, okay. And
Yeah.
so at that point, I like to tell the story. My husband, did try to ignore me, and for a while, and because now I'm gonna, right? He's
Mhm.
he's very successful, but he's worked for the same company for 30 years.
Right.
And so he and I have very different, career paths and
Right.
ideas, and we operate differently.
But it's good that he supported you.
Oh,
He
absolutely.
believed in your vision. He saw the passion that you had for this idea.
He did.
Yeah.
We went to dinner one night after it's clear that this wasn't going away, and I was
Right.
finding a way for us to do it.
Right.
And he did say to me, he said, "Listen, I know you'll be successful. I'm in. You know,
Yeah.
we're gonna sell the house, move to the beach, and you're gonna quit your job, and we're gonna just, hope." He's like, I believe in you, so let's go.
Yeah.
So,
And that's 75% of the idea. It's not really the business model, especially early, because there's a lot of pivots and changes, and
yes,
it's the leader, it's the operator. So somebody coined the phrase "bet on the jockey, not the horse," and that's really what I'm hearing here is like they're betting on you.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
I think that's and that's that's a blessing and a curse too, because then
Right. Yeah.
because then you take on the response, you feel that, and as an entrepreneur, you feel the weight
Oh,
of
100%.
all of the people on your
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
betting on you,
Yeah.
right? But yes, I was very fortunate to have people around me that, that had a lot of confidence in.
So armed with a small loan,
Mhm.
and now that you've done some analysis and you've got your business model down, and where was the first launch? Was it here?
Yeah, Surf
Okay.
City. Right across the street from our existing store today, right there on Topsail Island in Surf City.
Oh, let me back up.
Yep.
So you were an RTP, but were you still living there and you launched it in Surf City?
Yes, we had a
Okay.
home in Topsail,
Okay, like a second home.
a second home.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you still had your full-time job.
Full, still have my
So this
full-time.
was a side hustle initially.
Initially, the development of it was a side. I was developing it
Okay.
while I was still working in RTP.
Okay.
So all of that. But when I knew it was going to open in March,
Mhm.
that's when I left my job. So they didn't overlap, because I knew that I was going to be I was going to have to be the one in there every day at the
Yeah.
store. So when I saw that, okay, this is, I had to make a decision.
Now that's kind of burn the boats mentality. Like you're all in,
I'm all in.
Did you ever think like, all right, if this idea fails, I could always go back, get my job back? You
Yeah.
felt like there was a safety net.
I felt like it might not have been that job, but I could go back to my industry,
Right.
and I could get a job
I think a
back
lot
in
of
life science.
people, when they go through that process, first off, where do I get the capital to raise? I have a good idea. Where do I go? Do VC? Do I go, bootstrap or friends and family? But then it's almost like, when do I actually go in, all in? And there's like a transition where I can still work a full-time job, get a paycheck, and then work on my, side idea at night or on weekends or whatever. But you, from a concept, you knew exactly what you wanted to do, and you were comfortable and confident enough to say, look, I'm all in. I'm going to give this a good shot. So in March, you launched your first location, and you were 100% in.
100% in. I was
Okay.
there all day, I knew that I had to be 100% in, because
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody else. We were figuring out the model. I was figuring out the business. So I had to be there every day to
Yeah.
be able to make those pivots, or to make those changes, or to see what was working and what wasn't, because there was nobody else doing what we were doing. Well, there wasn't. You asked me about competitors. At the time, there was nobody else doing exactly what we were doing.
Mm.
There was a concept, and they still exist today. They were franchising. I don't believe they're franchising anymore. Called Outer Banks Oil Company, and then they had different names in different markets.
Right.
But their concept was, they were doing the steam pots to go, but they were also, I think the majority of their business model was a catering model.
Right.
So, but at the time, I wasn't even aware of them. So I just knew that for me, I had to get in there, and I had to see if this thing worked. So it had to be all or nothing.
Got it.
And so but in the back of my head, I thought, yeah, if this thing doesn't work, I'll just go back to life science.
I felt the same way when I first started my little consulting gig in 2001. I'm like, you know what? I can always go work for an integrator if I need to. So
Right.
yeah, so give it a shot.
I just felt like there's always I knew that there was always a plan B.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
I've always had a plan B.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
So 2017, you open up your first location in Surf City, and in March. So walk me through that first season, because up until this point, you had no restaurant experience. Did you have an advisor, restaurant people that you were talking to, getting advice and how to pivot and work this out?
I had a couple, yeah, I would say from different areas. When I pitched the original idea, I pitched it to some restaurant people, and they felt like it was a good idea.
Mm.
I remember one in particular. he just kept saying, challenging me to think bigger, think bigger, think bigger. I give
Yeah.
him the thing, think bigger. No, you got to think bigger. And so I think for me, that was something that I've always, I think that's why I applied to Shark Tank, right?
Right.
Like, if you're going to think big, what's bigger
Yeah.
than that? Like,
Exactly.
might as well just
Yeah.
keep thinking bigger. And
Right.
so I've done that since the day we opened, where for me, I've just felt like this it's possible to take this thing really
Yeah.
big. And
Yeah.
I think you have to think that from the beginning. Now there's some, there's a lot of people that might look at where I am right now, and we've put a lot of money into growth, right? We've funded a lot of money into growth. There's definitely debt there, but the idea is if we want to grow, right?
Mhm.
So when you're thinking bigger, there's different schools of thought about approaching it that way.
Right.
But that's what we've done over the past. That's what
Is
I've chosen to do over the past
using
7 years.
debt,
Using debt, yeah, we haven't
leverage.
brought any equity because we also did
Okay.
we opened up brick and mortar stores, 7 of them on our own, right?
Okay.
So I have bootstrapped. I've opened, one store I opened on no interest credit cards.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot along the way. We also, this is probably skipping ahead a little bit. So the first year we saw the model was working, and having no experience opening stores or anything like that, or thinking about understanding who the customer is or why
Right.
it was working or any of those things that we now know are so important, thought was, okay, well, let's open another one really quick. Let's go to Wrightsville. Wrightsville has, feels like it's the economic demographic where that
Right.
might work because we have
Yeah.
a high end product or a higher price product.
Right.
Although when you look at it price per person, we're not. But generally, just because you're feeding a group, people
Right.
perceive it as a
Right.
high ticket item.
Exactly. Yeah.
And knowing what I know now today, that was that the best place to go? Probably not. The market size wasn't right. There's a couple different things that we now know about a location that we would look at, and
Mhm.
so the stores that store's open, it still makes money, but tomorrow would I open in that particular location in that town in that city? No, because we're so much smarter now,
Right.
right? It's a great sister store to Surf City store, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of lessons we've learned along the way.
Right.
But when we did open that store, that was May of 2018. Then we had Florence hit,
Oh, okay.
and Florence was a huge impact for Topsail,
Mhm.
and the visitors and how long it took us to
Yeah.
get
I
those,
remember that. Yeah.
how long it took to get the rental units back to bring the visitors
Right.
back.
Yeah.
So that was a really tough time for us, and that is when I developed hey, can we ship this?
Mhm.
Right? Is this something, if our customers can't get to us, can we get to them?
Right.
So I actually, at the time, there was NC Rural Fund was offering loans for businesses so that they could learn how to be resilient in the face of what had happened here, like a
Mhm.
storm. Can they shore themselves up or do something so that
Right.
they can be resilient should it happen again? And so for me, I thought, well, yeah, I can be resilient in the way that we can figure out how to get this. If this happens again or something happens to the island, we can ship and we can get it to our customers elsewhere. So
Right.
I first started that one, and I'll remember I was in the store all my own. If I got an order for 4, I was there all day shipping 4, right? Like trying to figure out how to, prep it all and get it all and package it up and then get it to the FedEx or the
Yeah.
UPS store. And today we can do 500 a day.
You can do
We
500 a
can do
day.
500 a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how it went, right?
Yeah.
That was and so that was 2018.
Mm.
I think we got hit September 2018. I started shipping, really figuring out how to ship in 2019.
Okay.
And this is a great story too for us. And we were shipping a couple a day here and there. And
Mhm.
it was just, okay, well, this is something, starting out your own e-commerce business is very different than the brick and mortar. And there's a lot you have to
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot you have to learn about the e-commerce business. And so we were doing it, but in January of 2020, I came across Goldbelly, and I thought, wow. And in January of 2020, Goldbelly was a business for local niche food providers to be
Mhm.
able to have a national reach.
Right.
So let's say you had your favorite Chicago deep dish pizza, but you moved to Florida and you want to order it, you can do it through Goldbelly. Or you're
Okay.
in California and you have your favorite New York bagel from your favorite. It allows that mom and pop shop to be able to leverage the Goldbelly platform to be able to ship
Got it.
nationally.
Okay.
So I applied to them in January, and
Mhm.
they only took about 1% of the people that applied.
Oh, wow.
And I remember they sent me a picture of one of our pots cooking in Manhattan because we do it in, we send it to them in New York. And we signed with Goldbelly on March 1st of 2020,
Okay.
which that's when the world shut down and
Yeah.
everyone was ordering food,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the timing was
Right.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think their sales, I think they were, an astronomical amount. I can't remember, 500% increase or something
Yeah,
like that.
I'm
Like it was
sure.
just
Yeah.
unbelievable. So for us, it was very fortunate in that we just got a lot more exposure at that time,
Right.
and that really helped us too during COVID. So
So is your product actually at their facility,
no,
and
we
then
ship it all out of Surf City,
you ship it all out of here?
all out of Surf City. Out
Wow.
of this, yeah. So it's all the local food here. The way it works is it's a wholesale relationship from an economic standpoint, but every day we just get the shipping labels of where they of where they go,
Mhm.
and we pack everything here in Surf City and ship them out daily.
Wow. Do you use dry ice?
We use gel packs.
Okay.
So, and everything goes out fresh. We don't sell, so it's just as if you were
Yeah.
the only thing difference from going into a store is you need to cut the potatoes when you
Right.
get there. You only use dry ice when you're shipping something frozen.
Okay. Got
So
it.
since we don't ship frozen, we
Okay.
have to do
The
we do the gel
gels.
packs. Yeah.
Got it.
So we do the gels and then we ship it in a styrofoam cooler
Yeah.
and everything goes overnight. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's really and that's one of the things that I think Lori was excited about in terms of, the sharks and coming
Yeah.
in, that there
Oh,
was that
yeah.
online component of
Right.
that part of the business.
Yeah.
And Todd would be interested in the, the
Yeah.
brick and mortar store.
What happens if your online sales jumps from 500 to 5,000?
We can
You can support
we can
that.
support it. Yeah.
Now, now I understand you source all of your seafood in the local markets that you're in,
Mhm.
right?
Whatever's available in the local market.
Okay.
So, like for example, we're in New Jersey. We can't source shrimp there because there's no such thing as New Jersey shrimp,
Right.
right? So, but here in North Carolina, and so for all of the buckets that are being shipped out of North Carolina, it's North Carolina shrimp, local clams, local oysters. They're the three items that we can source locally here.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you're a godsend to the local
We buy
fishermen.
a lot of
Yeah.
shrimp from this area.
From Sneads Ferry.
From Sneads Ferry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Davis shrimp is our
Okay.
main.
Do you enter in some type of long-term arrangement to kind of lock in some of your prices to kind of hedge inflation, or?
No, not at this point because it's really tough to do, especially with I don't want to say no across the board. For some products, we do. Yes,
Mhm.
for some products, we're able to. Products that we see through major distribution, and we have good partners who will, as we see something creeping up, or if there's whales mating in 3 zones in Canada, and we know crab prices are going to raise because of that,
Right.
then we'll work with our partners where we buy and try to lock in and do
So
our best.
you've got a pretty extensive relationship with different companies sourcing seafood on the East Coast
We
at this
do.
point.
We do.
Do you source any seafood from the Gulf? Like, I know you opened in Alabama.
Now we opened in Anna Maria Island. So that's where we started because in different regional areas there's a request for things. So
Mm.
for example, in New Jersey, there's a certain oyster called a Cape May salt that people really like, and
Yeah.
we make sure that we source that. When we opened in Anna Maria, we found that there's a shrimp, a Key West pink, that
Yes.
people like.
They do.
And
Yeah.
so, and that's a Gulf product. So we'll bring that in as an option for
Okay.
those stores. And yes, we just opened up in Gulf Shores. We opened up in the off season, so we really haven't seen the volume there yet, or had a ton of customer requests. But we know crawfish is going to
Right.
be something that
Yeah,
they're going to want to
for
look
sure.
to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a sausage too. I don't know if I say it right, Bodine, something. There's probably a sausage. So if there's something specific to the market and it
Mhm.
makes sense for us to bring it in, it works with our buckets, then we're always going to look at that.
Right. So seafood, if I remember correctly, makes up about 28% of your cost, right?
Uh,
27,
That's our
28?
food. Yep. So our
Or
food costs.
food,
And that's
total
that
food.
total food cost. That's
Okay. That's
total
corn,
food cost.
potatoes,
corn,
everything.
potatoes, seasoning, seafood, all of that.
Which
Yes.
is not bad because you would think seafood's very expensive,
Mhm.
and you're able to capture some pretty dramatic scale at really what I think is at a very attractive price. Is that one of your competitive advantages, you think?
I think that lends itself to the model, right? They're the things that
Right.
we looked at
Yeah.
when creating the model and creating the pricing. Also, we buy the items that we are on our menu right now are not items that you see a lot of fluctuation with.
Okay.
It's not like fish where you can have a flounder like we flounder and there's such price variability in other types of seafood.
Mhm.
For us, there's not a lot of variability. Snow crab, it's caught once a year. You know what the market's going to do.
Okay.
Shrimp, there's not there. There's some variability in scallops and lobster, but nothing. Our, if you'll see, there's very few things we have market pricing on
Mm.
because we have them all built into our bucket, and that would present some real challenges with
Right.
maintaining our menu price
Right.
and gross margin and all of that. So
Do you do any forecasting as far as like anticipated sales versus predictive and supply as far as materials?
we do. I mean, we do forecasting on our sales, right?
Yeah.
And how we'd like to see, and that model's still growing, right? Because it's different in year 2, 3, 4,
Mhm.
and we're still collecting data on how
Right.
we would expect a growth to happen, and it's going to be very different too because we're just entering the traditional markets. Like
Mhm.
we just opened up in Charlotte.
Right.
That's a very different. That's a first for us. So
Right.
that we're already seeing that ramp is going to be different.
Right.
There's just so many different components to
Right.
ways we have to learn about
Mhm.
how to open in a traditional market and also understand the customer behavior and how
Right.
that's going to work.
So it sounds like you're operating a just-in-time model, whereas you don't really source the material until you have the order in hand. Is that right?
For food,
Yeah.
I would say no. We just look at the run rate of the previous couple weeks
Okay.
and then
You order
and
based
then we're
on that.
according to based on that. And then also historic. So if we're running into a Thanksgiving week, we'll look at what were the Thanksgiving sales over the last couple
Okay.
years? What run rate are we running this year over prior? And then we just make purchasing decisions based on that. We purchase our food. The only thing we really purchase ahead of time are the pots.
Okay.
And that's a yearly forecast that we have to make.
And you keep all those off-site, like in storage.
We
and
do.
You just pull when you need.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
But they're the thing that's one of the items that we, when you think about forecasting for a purchasing perspective,
Right.
that we really need to do the work on
Yeah.
and make sure.
I didn't know, like, from a demand planning point of view, since it's seafood, like, for example, around holidays, I didn't understand, like, did you order some of this ahead of time, anticipating, and then maybe you had some leftover inventory you didn't use, or
Well, all our items you can order. We get deliveries a couple days a week.
okay.
So you just will, our partners know, hey, we know that they'll have a high volume. And so they'll
Mhm.
on their end make sure that they'll be able to support us on the high volumes those days.
Right.
But we don't, because we don't really have a warehouse or somewhere where we can say, let's buy, a couple weeks worth of crab and put it here.
Yeah.
We're able to, our suppliers are great partners, just know we talk about our levels and we just make sure that they're able to
Okay.
supply
So there's
us.
really not a time where you call up and say, "I need 500 pounds of shrimp." And they're like, "Oh, we only have 200."
No. I hope that, if that happens, out of the blue, that means we
Right.
had like some
Yeah.
anomaly that we
Right.
weren't prepared for. And if
Yeah.
it happens once or twice, that's great. But
Yeah.
no, we're having consistent conversations with
Good.
our suppliers to make sure
Okay.
that
So
they're
no supply chain issues.
no. And that
Good.
was, we had to shore that up too, especially
Right.
as we go inland and we go to
Oh,
other
yeah,
places
for
to make
sure.
sure that we can source everything through major distribution, which we can.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're 60% margin, roughly,
Mhm.
40-60 model. And I love that because typical restaurants are not like that, right? Do you own your storefronts or do you lease them? I imagine you lease them, right?
Yep. I own the Surf City, the
Yeah.
flagship store,
Okay.
but the rest are lease.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you enter into 2, 3, 5-year leases typically? Or-
Typically 5 years with
Okay.
options.
And you have some price control to kind of capping your rent
Yes.
from that point of view.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that you look into as far as trying to keep your prices intact as costs go up. And how about labor? Have you had any labor inflation issues over the last couple of years?
I mean, we've definitely seen some inflation in labor, but for us, labor has not been nearly as much of a challenge as you heard in other hospitality
Right.
businesses
Yeah.
over the last couple of years, and I think there's a couple reasons why. Um, First is the way that we hire is we hire anybody that works in the store is a STEAM team member.
Mhm.
So the way that works is when we hire you, you need to be customer facing, build a bucket, um, answer a phone, but you're also washing the dishes and mopping the floors and cutting the sausage,
Jack of
right?
all trades.
Yes,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
And that allows us from a business perspective to be able to really fluctuate with our sales and our labor, right?
Mhm.
So if we have a day where there's two people, if it's a lower sales day, we can run with two people or up to six. But from the employee standpoint, our operating hours are ideal. They're 12 to 7. Shift is 11:30 to 7:30.
Yeah.
And we pay them from an hourly wage. I think it's like between 11 and $15 an hour, which is, I mean, it's well above North Carolina
Yeah.
minimum wage. But
Yeah. Yeah.
where I think the real advantage is our average price point is about $155, right,
Mhm.
for a bucket, and they get tips from that.
Okay.
People tip. So our employees can make anywhere from sometimes there's a tip rate anywhere from 3 to an additional $20 an hour,
Right.
right? So they have the opportunity to make good money. They're ideal hours, and I'll go back to the feeling and emotion of the store. It's
Right.
just a happy place to be.
Yes.
And for me, in the very beginning, I didn't know anything about opening up a restaurant. So I knew that when I started to look at this, in all of my research too, I really looked into different areas of hospitality and people in that industry, and I came across a book that I absolutely loved, and we use that philosophy today. It's called Set the Table by Danny Meyer.
Okay.
And he talks about enlightened hospitality and that really spoke to me because I think I knew that when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, that's the philosophy I want in my business. And what that is, it's really 51, like the core to the philosophy of enlightened hospitality is it's
Mhm.
51% about how you make a customer feel,
Right.
49% about the product that you give them,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that as I built the business, I wanted to build it on, core values. I got to work with a lot of different companies, right? Throughout and most of them A players, corporations. So I was able to pick and choose those areas those values, the things that I wanted to pull into my own business,
Yeah.
right? And so for us, some of our core values are collaboration, integrity, kindness, optimism, sense of excellence, those types of things. And so
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure that as we built the company, that was with the DNA, the
Mhm.
fabric of who we are, how we communicate with each other, how we communicate with external partners, how we deal with customers, all of that. And so I think that we've done a really good job of building that culture
Right.
in the company. And because of that, when people come to work for us, they stay.
Right.
They like to be a part of it. We have such a great internal culture, and that's just our HQ team, but also store to store, and I think it's a combination of all those things.
Right. Yeah. There's three things I look at when I make an investment. Team, traction, and then market opportunity. But really, it's all about the team,
It's all about
and it starts at the top. So, is it just you from a leadership point of view? I mean, does your husband share any responsibilities or other family members? Is it a family business or is it
It's a family business that my husband's not part of the company at all. He's my biggest
okay?
supporter, and I
Yeah.
definitely bounce things off of him, but
Yeah.
he is not involved in the day-to-day whatsoever. I would say he's more of like a board seat position, right? When we're talking big strategy
Right.
and those types of things about, where we're headed. So it is just me. I'm CEO, COO.
Wow.
Yep.
How many hours a week do you work?
Who
80?
knows?
70? You have to
It's never
never
turned off,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
never
When you're
turned
on
off.
payroll, you're thinking about where's the
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
now, but it's not just me. It's me running the company. I have I have a HQ team though, a pretty substantial HQ team that is running payroll for me. Like, so I
Yeah.
have I have a director of business administration who takes care of all,
Okay.
all of that. I
So
have
from an
a,
overhead how many people do you work with on the back office?
on my HQ, I have about, I think we have 7 people on HQ, which
Okay.
that covers marketing, social, financial, franchise development, franchise, field consultants to help,
Right.
our franchisees.
Are these W-2 full-time?
They're all W-2 full time.
Okay.
And then I have a fractional CFO and I have a fractional growth business advisor who's been with me from I guess probably about 5 or 6 years.
Okay, good.
That's a great story. I don't know if you're familiar with Diane Duran. She was the head of the
Mhm.
CIE from UNCW. I joined or got involved with Wilma here, and they had a mentorship program, and I wound up getting Diane as my mentor, and she was the head of the Center for Entrepreneurship
Right.
at UNCW.
Mhm.
And one of my meetings with her, she happened to have Dave. His name's Dave Haviland. She was a friend. He was in a meeting, and it was great. I remember him giving me quick advice, just very when to play offense, when to play
Mhm.
defense, that type of thing. And about a year later, we were mentioned in a Forbes article, and I thought, oh, I think it was Forbes and Gold Belly and everything was happening, and I thought,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to need to bring somebody on to talk about growth and
Yeah.
figure out, how we're going to grow,
That's
where we're
smart.
going to grow.
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
so while I say it's just me, I mean, I'm from a leadership, it's me, but I definitely have a large team around me,
Right.
and that's been intentional.
And one of the greatest keys to success is how to delegate.
Yes.
Because a lot of people get into it. They're like, oh, yeah, I've got to do everything myself. But once you relinquish that control and surround yourself with a good team that understands their function and their role, then you can kind of like oversee and manage, and which is then you can start growing and scaling. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's what we've done. And there's a lot of difference of opinions. I definitely front loaded ahead of the curve to be
Mhm.
able to have a team, develop a team to handle growth when growth came and when we figured out. That's been it's not always been the easiest decision in terms of,
Mhm.
definitely the fact that we haven't brought in any equity partners. And
Right.
yeah.
So, taking the success that you found in North Carolina, between Surf City and Wrightsville, when did you decide to start launching businesses in New Jersey and Florida and other areas in North Carolina, Charlotte, and then
Yep.
obviously up in Delaware, Alabama?
Alabama.
Yeah.
We knew we talked about my roots in New Jersey,
Yeah.
and I knew that there were several towns in New Jersey that were lookalike markets to
Okay.
Topsail.
Mhm.
But again, everything seems to happen on a trip. I'd been thinking about. I'd always thought, well, it'd be interesting to open one of these in New Jersey because of
Mhm.
there was very similarities, places where high number of rental units, families came to
Mhm.
vacation week to week, high season, that type of thing. And I was up there with family, and my dad, there was this favorite fudge place that we always went to called Lars Fudge. Anybody from that area will know Lars Fudge. And my dad went out to go grab us some Lars Fudge, and he
Mhm.
came back and he's like, "They're closed."
Oh.
And I said, "How do you know?" And he's like, "Because there was a, for rent sign on, or, he went there and there was a for rent sign."
Mhm.
And this was like on the corner in Ocean City. And I thought, oh.
Perfect location. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just
Your
went,
mind's going. Yeah.
so I just went the next day, and it was one of those like orange and black for rent signs. So,
Yeah.
that there's just an easy way to get to talk to the owner. And so that next day I called, the owner came over. It was the perfect spot.
Mhm.
And I just thought, okay, we're gonna, I think we should do this because I think this store will really work. And so
Was this in 2020
that
or
was in 2019. We
19?
opened in May of 2020.
Okay. Yeah.
So again, really good timing for us.
Right.
No store will open like that. I mean,
Right.
for 8 months, there were no restaurants open in New Jersey, but we were open,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
everyone was living at the shore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not a model we can use for,
Right.
measuring
Yeah.
what an opening will look like. But so that's when I knew. So there's another one. I we had to figure out the capital. I opened it with a Rob's program, 401k, right? So each one was a little bit different because we were just trying to figure out, because the
Right.
brick and mortar of how to do the upfit and all of the equipment. There's investment to opening one.
Right.
Right now, our initial investment somewhere is like between 320, I'm sorry, 250 and 375.
Okay. For a franchise model.
For just all in for franchise
Yeah.
model. That
Yeah.
includes franchise fee
Okay.
and all of that as well. Right.
So you started out with a 75K loan,
Uh-huh.
right, from family.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you're launching your new out-of-state location in New Jersey, did you take any more debt, or were you just recycling profits back into the company at this point? Or
Yeah, I recycled profits back in.
Yeah. So you're in full growth mode.
Full growth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Still leveraging other assets to expand?
Yeah, we continue to take debt. We took debt
Okay.
for every store um Ocean City was through a Rob's program, so that was my
Yeah.
401k.
Yeah.
We took the rural loan after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry, after Florence.
Florence.
The
Yeah.
and that
Okay.
was for both stores.
Mhm.
And then when we went to different locations to fund those, we did friends and family, loans for particular locations.
Mhm.
And then during COVID, there was SBA loans.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
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 So
Everybody's frowning those.
everybody's got the SBA loans, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it didn't make
Yeah.
sense not to take them, and we
So
needed them at the time. So yes, we have decided to and along the way, I think the question was going to be, how did we get here, right?
Mhm.
From a franchise perspective.
Right.
What I realized in the story I've told you, we're going to continue to grow, but there was going to need to be capital. So at
Mhm.
some point, we thought, okay, there's opportunity here. We didn't know what our total addressable market was yet because we hadn't beta tested the traditional markets,
Mhm.
but we knew that we could get up to, like 150 on the coastal markets,
Right.
right? That's what
Yeah.
we were thinking.
Yeah.
And then if it works in traditional markets, that just blows it wide open.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But in order to be able to pursue that opportunity, we were going to have to bring in capital. I mean,
Mhm.
because we couldn't finance the upfit of all of the
Right.
stores if we were going to continue to do it corporately.
Right.
And so we started to look at that. I started to, and I was new to venture capital and all of that, how raising money and how that works and what the ramifications are and
Mhm.
what life looks like after that and all of that, right?
Right.
So we started to look at it, and I think I had a, I think I started to drag my feet a little bit on it, and I wasn't really sure why. And then I had always had a bias to franchising based on nothing, based on like those, just the things that people say about
Yeah.
franchises,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But someone encouraged me along the route to look at both raising and look at growth through franchising.
Mhm.
And so I thought, okay, well, I will take a look. I'll take a hard look at
Mhm.
growth through franchising. And what I learned was that there were models out there that were very intentional about their growth,
Mhm.
and that there are models out there that don't, that remain, the brand remains very much intact, the culture remains very much intact.
Mhm.
And what I liked was the idea of being able and finding those partners that are like-minded entrepreneurs like me,
Mhm.
right? That maybe just didn't have the idea, but love the idea of running their own business and
Right.
growing it and improving it if
Right.
they can, or, all of those things. So when I understood a little bit more about that model, I felt like that was the right way for us to grow.
Okay. The franchise model.
The franchise model.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. From a unit perspective and growing more units.
Okay. So before you went into franchising, how many stores did you open?
Let's see. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Okay. And most of them are in North Carolina, New Jersey,
and 1 in Florida. Oh,
and
I
one in
opened Florida
Florida.
as a corporate store.
Okay. Do you travel a lot between the locations,
Not
or do you have somebody in
Yeah,
each
not so
regions?
much anymore. I
Okay.
used to all the time,
I
but
bet.
not so much anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Because when you talk about your culture and the values, and how do you effectively ensure that your vision is facilitated or executed in these other
Yeah.
locations?
I think it's my team that I have that is
Okay.
interacting with them all the time. I'm with the new franchisees in the very beginning where, we're having the conversations, and here I for us, it's not numbers. You'll see some franchise concepts out there that have, numbers that they have to meet and sell this many this
Right.
year, and we're not there. I mean, we have a forecast, and it takes some time to get to be what they call royalty self-sufficient, and I know that, but we're gonna look at that runway. I'm never gonna sacrifice bringing people into the organization that weren't the right one to meet a certain number,
Right.
right? Like we're always gonna put that first.
Oh, but how do you facilitate the culture?
Number one, I try to do it. I try to do as much as I can on the front end to only bring people in to the organization as franchisees or franchise operators that I feel like really are a good culture fit.
Yeah.
And then my team that works with them through opening and consistently have been with me since the beginning, and they know me, they know our culture, they
Mm.
know how we want those operators to build that same culture in their
Right.
stores. I feel like we have a finger on the pulse of it. And if something
Got it.
feels a little bit out, I know about it,
Mhm.
right? So I think that as we scale, that will be harder, but the key is building your team to be able to communicate that culture, those values,
Right.
and just bringing people into the organization that feel right.
Do you offer any continuous education, learning experiences, or do you get them together a couple times a year?
The franchisees?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of new.
Yeah.
I'm going to,
Yeah.
right? But we only really have franchisees. We're less than a year now of having
Okay.
them. So the idea is, yes, we want to have continuous education. We want to have that. I want camaraderie around them. Yes, the answer to that is yes. Because that's how we're gonna foster that,
Right.
especially as we're bringing new people in. And then be able to continue, because the more you hear about it, see it, experience in the
Mhm.
group, I think the higher chance for success to be able to continue
Right.
that way.
How do you use any technology, or how often do you communicate with these markets? And do you keep a pulse on them? Like, hey, how's it going over there?
Oh yeah, we have right now we have weekly marketing meetings or
Okay.
weekly check-ins because we've got a lot of new openings, so we
Mhm.
want to make sure that we're with them. We just invested in a platform called Plotter, PLOTR, that has helped us take all of the information about our current, like everything we know demographically, psychographically about our customers, everything, and to build a model nationally as to where we will look at for locations. So
Mhm.
that was a pretty big investment for us because we wanted to do obviously technology can tell you only half the story. You got to get out there and be on the ground. But we feel like that investment was really important so we could get a really good understanding of markets and where we should go. Because I made a few mistakes in the beginning. We were like, oh my gosh, this place looks great. Okay,
Mhm.
great. Let's just go there.
Yeah.
Well, I'll come to find out that there doesn't nearly have enough population that
Right.
we needed. So now we've gotten a lot smarter and we've brought in, I also have done an advisory board where we've brought in people that understand how to scale and
Mhm.
open so that we knew that there was some technology that we were going to have to invest in. I
Right.
felt like, again, I decided to go ahead of the curve to try to I'd love to try to ward off some of the mistakes that people make,
Mhm.
by investing upfront. So that's one technology, and then we use a CRM for franchise development.
Yeah.
There's just a pretty consistent communication and conversation with our
Mhm.
franchisees.
So your total sales this year, five,
I think
seven?
we really had a hit with Anna Maria Island.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be down a couple 100,000 because there's just no sales there. So
Right.
I think we'll probably hit about all total about
Total.
5.5. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's franchising,
Mhm.
and that's top line revenue for all our stores. And because it's tough to so many different ways to communicate it, like
Right.
because there's some of them we've sold off some that are now franchises and royalty, but I would say total system wide sales is going to be about 5.5,
5.5.
5.4 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's about, based on the numbers you gave on Shark Tank, is that 25% growth from last year,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is great.
It is great.
Yeah.
Most of it's come through our franchising, and
Yeah.
then additional stores that we've added. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, one of the concepts or questions, I guess, the Raising Cane's gentleman said to you was, don't do franchising
Mhm.
because number one, it would lower your total enterprise valuation because he kept them private, and he seems to think his restaurant has a higher valuation for not franchising. And he was advocating for basically creating like managers or vice presidents or whatever title you give them, and then give them a healthy salary, 6-figure salary or upper 5 figures, maybe commissions. What are your thoughts about that? That was, versus the franchising model. Yeah.
Well, you'll need a whole lot more capital than 350,000.
Yeah, exactly. You need several
So,
million dollars.
if somebody
Yeah.
wants to give me a couple million,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you can't ignore that fact. And then I would disagree with what he said in terms of you'll never find someone to run it as good as you.
Yeah, I disagree with that as
I
well.
disagree with that, and I'll tell you, we've had a ton of franchise interest since the
The show?
and
Yeah.
everyone brings that up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's funny how I just talking to a gentleman yesterday. He's like, I got up and was jumping up and down, saying that is not true, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
he was a franchisee of some other concepts, and so I disagree with that. Obviously, it would take a lot of capital, so it's
Yeah.
not something that if we were to go that route, then
Right.
we would have to go
I mean, your payroll
and raise.
would jump,
And we'd have to
considerably. Yeah.
fund the 300,000 for all the new locations for upfit,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would require a fairly significant investment
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
Nor would it would limit your growth potential as well, right?
Right.
Because instead of opening 50 or 20 stores, now we can only open 5 or 10,
Right.
because of the capital constraints.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And knowing that we make, but then you look at the bottom line, we make 7% on a franchise,
Mhm.
after a franchise fee and all. And if you can get to 20, like there's definitely, it's more profitable to have a corporate store, but you're
Right.
right, but there's less that you can open. So you can compare the two.
Yeah.
But one of the things where he talked about the managers, we've seen in franchising, this was one of my mentors too, that he was a multi-unit Zaxby's owner. And so oftentimes, and we're seeing interest from multi-unit operators, right?
Mhm.
Multi-unit operators come in, that is their business. And so the multi-unit operators often give those managers a piece of equity of the
Right.
business
Right.
or skin in the game, so that when they're running, those multi-unit operators are running it, they can have a manager in place
Right.
that has an interest.
Right.
And so that's the way that you can put people in place that are managing these stores and have them, I think, have the same sense of ownership
Mhm.
as you would in the
Yeah.
way that he described. Todd described.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 There's different ways to skin a cat.
There's different ways
Yeah.
to skin a cat.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
exactly
Yeah.
right. And of course, once we get to a place, I mean, there's work for us to do, right? I feel like there's inside the four walls, we've got the store economics right,
Mhm.
right? We've got there's not a lot of variability in the profit, how a store can be profitable, but there's still a lot of work for us to do, whether or not we have an investment from the sharks or they become our
Mhm.
partners, and on the mechanics of how we'll scale.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
um,
So in your franchise models, so they come up with the 350
Mhm.
to do the initial build out because there's a lot of cost to actually create this storefront and the menus and order the supplies. A lot of people don't understand there's a lot of money that goes into that up front. So the franchisee comes up with that capital outlay, and then you come in and educate them on your culture. And this is how our model works. And now they've got the book or the script that they follow. They call you for questions, or if you need help, you're there to guide them through whatever. And do you take a split of the profit? Yeah.
Yep. So there's a royalty. So it's a 7% royalty, 7%
Okay.
royalty of their top line sales.
Okay.
And then also 1% that they, for brand advertising, like a brand marketing, brand advertising
Okay.
fund.
So that money goes back into the back office to help brand the whole organization.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's a 7% royalty. So they pay a 45% franchise fee.
Mhm.
And that franchise fee covers everything that we do for them from the day they sign a franchise agreement to when they open their doors.
So
we
your
have
your back office, does your back office help the payroll to all these locations, or
No.
does that operator do it himself?
operator does all his own payroll.
Okay, so that 7% really goes to fund the expansion and also the idea and the model
Yeah.
and the culture.
And the profitability of the company, right? Because eventually we're no longer on corporate stores, we're no longer making, that's our profit from that store.
Right.
Right. So we want to work with them to increase their top line, because as they increase their top line, then we increase our royalty.
Yeah.
So the initial franchise fee is what really pays our back office to get them open, right?
Right.
Everything from site selection, lease negotiation, getting them up and running,
Yeah, it's
training,
kind of
all
break
that.
even.
That's
Because you're paying the overhead to those people to get that site up.
to get that site.
So you're
up.
not really making any money off of
Not
that
on that. You
yeah,
never in a franchise model. You never look at that
Right.
at that money as we're spending that money
Yeah.
on 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 getting them open.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So
And some
you,
people don't realize that, but that's,
I know
yeah,
it's the things people don't really understand about franchising.
yes.
Yeah. So your growth model in scaling, you're targeting 150 stores right now.
Right now, but I think that for us, we're working on proving out the model in away from coastal markets.
Okay.
We feel like there's a range of our addressable market. It could go up to 400 if we get to a place where we're confident
Hmm.
in that traditional market. We prove that out.
Right. So the non-traditional cities like Charlotte, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. At
Yeah.
Charlotte, Raleigh, we have a franchisee that's opened up in Raleigh. So
Okay.
they're our first two stores that are outside of the coastal market that don't see that seasonality, right?
Right.
So that they're more of they're residential markets.
I know you mentioned tailgating, but have you thought about maybe NASCAR races or
Yes.
football games, baseball? How do you think about expanding into kind of the sports culture?
Yeah, we tried that
Yeah.
out last year to test that. We just focused on NC State games, and we offered pre-sales, and then we delivered them to the tailgates
Okay.
with the little
Oh yeah. What
campfire
a,
stoves.
have you thought about, the food trucks, like bringing like a big boil in the truck and then you just come and take your plate and dump it out?
Yeah, that is really so now we're getting into cooking.
Okay.
And now we're getting
You don't
into
want to do that.
we really
Yeah.
don't want to do
Okay.
that. We
Yeah.
want to keep the model
Yeah.
the way it is.
Yeah.
But there's been some thought about entering markets especially as we test out new markets. Maybe
Mhm.
there's alternative ways to enter into that market that aren't a brick and mortar to
Mhm.
just test it and see it. So
Right.
lots of different things. But we also have been partnering with breweries, right? Where a lot of the local breweries, we did this in Raleigh too, and some here where you see food trucks at breweries, but
Right.
we were able to bring the burners and the pot, and they have a lot of fun just cooking that pot right on their picnic table while they're
Yeah.
enjoying some beer. So
Okay.
lots of different, we just did a big winery event in New Jersey as well. So we're uncovering and seeing all of the different opportunities for
Yeah,
us
that's
to
great.
be able to, yeah.
So, have you ever given thought of because you're building a very massive distribution network apparently, and that's a value in itself. Other than shipping low country boils, have you thought about other products that you can introduce to your market?
Not right now. I think for us, we want to stay in our lane
Mm,
and perfect. We're really concentrating on responsible growth and
mhm,
intentional growth and making sure that we're understanding where the real opportunities are.
mhm,
I mean, we'll always look at tweaking the product. Like, for example, in Charlotte, we just are introducing a product that's a little bit smaller.
mhm.
So, because while people know it for gathering and holidays,
Right.
it can also be a Tuesday night after soccer option because it's convenient and it's
Absolutely.
healthy.
Yeah.
And like it hits all those marks. So, and you don't have to spread it out on the table and pick and hang around.
Right.
You can, but you can also put it in a platter and have it be a good, healthy, quick meal
Right.
on a Tuesday.
Absolutely.
So we're testing out an under $50 bucket that's a little bit smaller to accommodate that. So we'll continue to tweak the model a little bit to see what makes sense as we venture into these new areas.
Yeah. And I forgot to ask, in a lot of your markets, are they seasonal? Do like Memorial Day, Labor Day, do you shut down in the wintertime? Is
Some
that
do. In
okay?
the northern stores do. So all
Yeah.
of the New Jersey and Delaware stores are closed.
Okay.
Some will pop open for holidays because we're very easy to open up.
Right.
But yeah, for a while we were open because during COVID, people were living in those markets, so it made sense to stay open. But I think we're now back to traditional. Well, it'll never go back to the full seasonality because people are still working from home.
Right.
But it's gone back to a place where it makes sense in the north there to close down the stores. But
Got it.
South Carolina or North Carolina and South were open year round.
Yeah. In Florida, I guess you're
Florida,
open.
yes,
Yeah.
open year round.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So what about Maryland and Virginia? Are you just ignoring those states?
No, no,
Like-
no, not at all. We've had some interest in that area.
Okay.
We have a couple people that are
Okay.
talking to some people that are interested in that area.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So the target area seems like it's the East Coast and the Southeast, like on the Gulf and the Atlantic. What about the Pacific and
Yeah.
California?
We've had a lot of interest in the Pacific too. So California is a longer runway to be able to be approved for franchising.
Is that
So
just because of state regulations?
state regulations.
Yeah.
That's exactly
It's always everything's difficult.
everything, right?
Yeah.
So, for us, part of the growth too is there's a couple different philosophies on how to, especially in a franchise model, grow. Some people uh, go by the hub and spoke model, like making sure that there's some awareness and you're not just going out into the middle of the country
Right.
with no brand awareness and have a store all out on its own. So we think about that too, but for the right operator, multi-unit operator in an area who's got experience in an area that we feel really good about, I think that's something that we'll definitely consider. We're seeing a lot of demand. Our second highest state that we ship to is California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
What's the highest?
New York.
You shipped in New York at the
Yeah.
highest.
New York.
And you don't
yeah.
have any locations in New York.
No,
So
we
you
don't.
Why is that?
We just haven't had the right
Okay.
branch.
You have to have the right person.
We have to have the right person and
I
the right
see.
market.
Yeah.
So nothing yet.
Okay.
But yeah, they're the two states that we ship to the most.
Okay.
So-
What about RV parks? Like, have you thought about that?
Yeah, we have a lot of in our New Jersey locations. There's several RV parks that are there that we market to and that we get a lot of business from. But yeah, I mean, so many ideas. What about
Right.
lake towns?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
there's just a lot of different ideas and opportunities.
I'm
And-
just thinking, like, from an RV park point of view, you could probably contact the RV park owner
Mhm.
and say, "Hey, you want to make a deal?"
Right, that's right.
And then basically open up their own clubhouse to do Low Country Boil maybe twice a week, once a week, who knows?
Yeah.
And then they could, plus it up and make some extra money that way.
Yep. That's what excites me too about having local owners and local franchise owners
Mhm.
is that when you get people in those markets, they can really chase
Right.
down and pursue those opportunities that are in those markets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what is next for Danielle Mahon? So you're conquering the world in Low Country Boils. What's next for you?
I think for me, it's making sure that we're able to leverage the opportunity of being on Shark Tank.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to continue on concentrating on the growth of the company. Yeah.
Well, hopefully the deal goes through with Lori, but if anything, at least it's been a good experience that you've taken some of her insight, ideas, and the impact of being, national television, to amplify your sales.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And forever we'll be a Shark Tank brand,
right.
right? I hope that we are able to get to a place where we have them on board as investors and strategic partners. But if that doesn't happen, we've just seen a lot of interest and opportunity. My guess is that we'll have some interesting opportunities.
Well, I
ahead.
mean, you could save 18% too.
I could save 18%.
I love your ideas. I'll keep the equity.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And just put your foot on the gas on the franchise model.
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is fantastic. And
Thank you.
like you said, you got to find the right people to facilitate your culture and keep it intact and make sure they have all the resources they need to be successful and be there for support. But it sounds like it's a really true successful business story. And I'm really happy for you. And I'm so excited it came out of this area for sure.
That has been so fun. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, just the amount of support that this area has given us, me, my team. It was pretty, electric. It was fun. Yeah.
Right.
I think that, it was a tough secret to keep for a long time.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It really was because you just want to tell people, but I think once it got out, it really spread like wildfire. We had the mayor at our watch party and they gave us a ton of support and just I've heard from so many different people from different walks and times and
Right.
ages and stages of my life over the past 2 weeks, which has been really, really fun.
Right. Well, I know we get a lot of visitors at Saltwater and they routinely come and get your product and
Do they?
fix it in the rooms. Oh yeah. I mean, it's almost like like you said, it's an annual thing they do.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's
We
right.
actually thought, building an outdoor grill just for you, It's like, here's where your pots go.
All
Don't do
right.
it inside the room. Do it out here.
Do it out here.
Yeah. Well, when we were putting this concept together, as far as like a business focused podcast that Christa wanted to do, you're the first person that came to mind. Like, we have to talk to Danielle. It's like-
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
This is my first podcast.
Really?
Yes.
Well, this is my first one hosting as well.
Well, it's kind of like what Todd and I did. You see what I said on the episode? Todd said, "This is my first Shark Tank deal," and I'm like,
Right.
"This is mine too."
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck to you with your growth model, and hopefully we'll bring you back in short order. We could talk about conquering the rest of the United States.
I would love it. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.
Amplified CEO is produced by Topsail Insider, edited by Jim Mendes-Pouget, and sponsored by Cape Fear Ventures. For more information about Amplified CEO, Richard Stroupe, or Cape Fear Ventures, please contact Christa at 910-800-0111 or Christa at topsailinsider.com.